Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Luscious Mama podcast. I am so excited for you to be here with me today. I have another article that I found for you regarding what I like to call the war on breast milk. So, today, this article is about the history of infant formula, why it was created, how it was created, the measures they went to create it, and where we are with infant formula today. So I would like to jump right in and get started. Okay, so this article I found on contemporarypediatrics.com, and the title is A Concise History of Infant Formula, Twists and Turns Included. Now, I do want to warn you that there is infant sacrifice involved. I don't know if I'm able to say that, but they did test trials on infants. So if that's more appropriate to say, then that's what I'll say. So that's just a warning. It is triggering, but I thought that it was important for you to have this information so that we can understand the great length that everyone is going to in order to prevent women from nursing their children and being in the workforce, and how it is taking the toll and is becoming really detriment on our children. So let's get into it. So this article was done February 1st, 2003 by Andrew Schumann. So it says, finding an acceptable alternative to breast milk has proven to be a complicated quest that continues today with an ever growing assortment of modified and specialized infant formulas. If you are a quote mature pediatrician, pediatrician non older pediatrician, I think that's what that's supposed to say, older than 40 years or so, there is a good chance that if you were not breastfed as an infant, you were fed a formula created by mixing 13 ounces of evaporated milk with 19 ounces of water and 2 tablespoons of either corn syrup or table sugar. Now, okay, so when I was growing up, we used to do cereal, the baby cereal, the infant cereal, made by Gerber, I guess to expand inside the milk and keep the babies full longer. So I didn't know that they had corn syrup or table sugar. um that's even more that I would think that would be even more dangerous, because you're giving children, babies, spikes of sugar, and sugar that already has additives and sugar. I mean, infant formula that already has additives and sugar in it. So yeah, I didn't know that. Learn something new every day. Okay. Every day, parents prepare a day's worth of this formula, transferred it to bottles that they had sterilized in a pan of boiling water, and stored it in a refrigerator until used. In addition to formula, infants receive supplemental vitamins and iron. Yeah, because formula lacks a variety of nutrients. So if you don't supplement, that baby is deficient in most of the nutrients that breast milk readily provides to them. Infant nutrition has a fascinating history that began long before pediatricians recommended evaporated milk formula and eventually commercial formula as alternatives to breastfeeding. In this first article, in an occasional series that puts the practice of pediatrics into historical perspective, We'll take a look at how infant formulas were developed and how they evolved over time, from wet nursing to dry nursing. And I think that it's important to bring back the wet nurses. I think they were very important. I think they played a very vital role in um, children feeding, children nutrition, children upbringing. They were a great alternative to women who were not able to breastfeed, women who decided to work instead of being a stay-at-home mom. Wet nurses were very important, and I think that we should bring them back. They played a vital role in the nursing of the child, and it was a great way for your children to still be able to get the nutrients needed from breast milk that the mother wasn't able to provide for them. But now, wet nursing or even nursing someone else's child is really frowned upon, and it's looked at in a disgusting manner. So I think wet nurses is something that we need to take a look at to bring back today. From wet nursing to dry nursing. Before the era of modern, quote, modern medicine, breastfeeding was the preferred method for feeding infants, just as it is today. But if a mother's milk supply was inadequate or she chose not to nurse, the family often employed a quote wet nurse to nourish infants. This practice was common in Europe during the 18th century and in America during the colonial period. Families will hire a wet nurse to reside in the family's home or send the infant to live in the wet nurse's home and retrieve the baby after he or she had been weaned. Wet nurses were selected with the utmost care because it was believed the quality of the milk the baby received determined his or her future, quote, deposition. Brunette wet nurses were preferred to blondes or redheads because their breast milk was thought to be more nutritious and their disposition more balanced, quote, balanced. Yes, I'm sorry for the pause there, but yes, bringing back wet nurses would be very vital. Now, I see that the problem would be today with trying to employ a wet nurse is that we don't take care of our bodies anymore. We don't take Not only do we not take care of our bodies anymore, but um, we don't possess the nutrients that were prevalent in the 18th century. And what I mean by that is the food is more nutrient dense than it was in the 18th century. The soil is more depleted of nutrients, so therefore the food has been nutritionally depleted, and it's very it would be very difficult to find someone who is not only willing to take on a job to be a wet nurse, but also finding someone who is taking care of their bodies enough to be able to provide adequate nutrition to the children that they are nursing. So we don't do that anymore. We don't look for alternatives in the food, meaning eating solely fruits and vegetables, and non-processed food. We don't take care of our bodies. So the selection would be very scarce because not only would you have to find someone who takes care of themselves, but you will also have to find someone who is willing to be in their natural feminine state in order to breastfeed their children. So I can see how wet nurses got phased out. over time. During the 18th century in Europe, the demand for wet nurses was so great that bureaus were established where wet nurses could register and reside until their services were needed. Governments regulated the bureau strictly. Laws mandated that wet nurses undergo routine health examinations and prohibit them from nursing more than one infant at a time. Eventually, wet nursing fell out of favor and attention turned to finding an adequate substitute for mother's milk. The practice of feeding human babies milk from animals called dry nursing began to flourish in the 19th century. Milk from a variety of animals, goats, cows, mares, and donkeys, were used. Cow's milk became the most widely used because of its ready availability, although donkey's milk was thought to be healthier because its appearance most closely resembled that of human's milk. Physicians argued about the best way to prepare milk. Some suggested giving it fresh from the animal, while others recommended that it be warmed or boiled first, and still others, excuse me, suggested diluting it with water and adding sugar or honey. So I wonder why wet nursing got phased out. They didn't really get into it in the article, but I wonder why wet nursing got phased out. Um, because it was needed. Now, going from human's milk to animal milk is dangerous because we don't have the same genetic makeup. And the argument that comes in is, why would you feed your child animal's milk when animals don't feed their children human milk, right? It doesn't have the same um, it doesn't have the same enzymes we possess as humans. Our bodies are specifically made and tailored for our children. So the fact that the alternative was to give our babies animal milk, that was really drastic. Excuse me. That was really drastic, to go from wet nursing, well, to not nursing or not being able to nurse, to wet nurses, and then to animals. Like that's really drastic. But since science says, I guess, I'm just guessing, that science says that since we come from animals, that we should be able to drink their milk, right? I don't know. I'm just guessing. You tell me. I'm just guessing. Before the baby bottle came into use, milk was spoon fed to infants or given via a cow's horn fitted with chamois, chamois, with the small end as a nipple. When baby bottles were adopted during the Industrial Revolution, many popular designs evolved. Some were submarine shaped and made from metal, glass, or pottery. Now, imagine, imagine feeding your baby, right? Not only powdered milk solution, but out of out of a metal bottle. Now, glass bottle, okay, out of a metal bottle or clay bottle, because that's what pottery, a clay bottle. Are you serious? I'm telling you, this article gets crazy. They had a circular opening in the top that could be occluded with a cork, and one end tapered to a hole with a rim for securing a nipple. Another popular design was the spouted feeder, which resembled a teapot and was equipped with a handle and a long spout that in a terminated in a nipple-shaped bulb. The nipple opening in both types of bottles was covered with punctured chi- chimois cloth. I think that's the right word. Chimois cloth, parchment, or sponge. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Imagine your baby sucking on a sponge. Do you know how many germs that is? You know how many germs are captured in a sponge? Do you know how often you have to rotate sponges in order to prevent germ buildup? You know how much bacteria is in a sponge, and you have your child trying to suck the milk out of a sponge? And here's another thing, too: you can't recreate a nipple. It's very difficult to recreate a nipple with openings. What people don't understand about feeding your children breast milk is that it's more than just the milk. Like it's more than just the milk being suctioned from the breast. It's more than that. A baby can, instead of the bottle feeding the baby milk either at a slow rate, a medium rate, or a fast rate, the baby is able to control how much milk they are pulling from the nipple in order to satisfy them, in order to make them full. They are in control. So when you bottle feed your babies, the baby is no longer in control. Whether or not the baby is using its suction muscles, its jaw muscles to suction the milk from the bottle, whether or not the baby is doing that, the milk is going to come effortlessly. Whereas with the breast, they can control how much milk they receive. So everybody's trying to do this alternative to breast milk, but not really understanding the actual concept of what being fed from the breast really means. It's more than just milk. Rubber nipples became widely available and very popular after their invention by Elijah Pratt, an American, in 1845. After an infant was weaned from breast milk or cow's milk, he or she was given an infant food called pap, which consisted of boiled milk or water thickened with baked wheat flour and sometimes egg yolk. A more elaborate infant food called panada was made from bread, flour, and cereals cooked in milk or water based broth. Detailed recipes for various kinds of infant paps and panadas have been published in cookbooks throughout history. Okay, okay. The search for a breast milk substitute. A long-time goal of nutritionists and physicians was to develop an adequate breast milk substitution. In the early 19th century, it was observed that infants fed, I'm sorry, I can just phase it out.
Yeah, baby. Pick up ball. Pick up ball.
Hey, hey. Having fun, man. Yeah, you have fun, man. Yeah, you have fun, man. Yeah, I know. I see you. Yeah, I see you.
He's showing you the water.
I know.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
I see you, baby.
He want to go to the water.
Oh
All right,
Lord.
take time real quick. We gonna let Mama get some work done. Come here. Say love you, bye, Mama.
All right. See y'all soon.
See you soon, baby.
All right.
Love you, bye.
All right. Okay. Sorry about that. The search for a breast milk substitute. A long-time goal of nutritionists and physicians was to develop an adequate breast milk substitute. In the early 19th century, it was observed that infants fed on unaltered cow's milk had a high mortality rate and were prone to, quote, indigestion and dehydration compared to those who were breastfed. Now you see how I said that they made children test subjects. A lot of children met an untimely demise just because they were trying to create this formula. They sacrificed children in order to get this formula right. And that's why today, even if it's at a lower rate, children still are unable to digest and be hydrated from formula today. That's why SIDS is prevalent, more heavily prevalent in children that are formula fed than children that are breastfed. They used them kids back in the day. They used them kids. They tested on those children. Didn't care of the outcome. Didn't care about them kids losing their lives. Didn't care about those babies' parents and the parents too. What I don't understand what was so important for you that you had to not breastfeed your kid. Now I get it. Some people are not able to breastfeed. I get it, but that is why we needed wet nurses, because at least you knew your children were safe. And it's best if you would have had the wet nurse living with you, so that you could still be around and create a bond with your child. But it's better because even if you aren't able to breastfeed, it's someone else around who was. Excuse me. In 1838, a German scientist, Johann Franz Simon, published the first chemical analysis of human and cow's milk, which served as a basis for formula nutrition science for decades to follow. He discovered that cow's milk had a higher protein content and a lower carbohydrate content than human milk. In addition, he and later investigators believed that the larger curds of cow's milk compared to the smaller curds of human milk were responsible for the indigestibility of cow's milk. No, the indigestibility comes from the fact that it's cow's milk. It's milk made for cows. It's not made for human consumption. That's like me saying, okay, well, let me go. That baby cow, that mama can't feed the baby cow. So let me go over here and get this baby cow some human milk. It won't suffice. It's not sufficient. That cow's milk will not be able. If I fed a cow human's milk, I would be depleted because I don't weigh as much, and my milk production is not made for a cow. And even then, with using quote unquote cow's milk, because I don't think cow's milk is used, and even if it is, it's a small amount. You all still had to substitute and use additives and use filler and sugar in order to create the product you call formula. So it still don't work. It still didn't work. So what was the point? Empirically, physicians began to recommend that water, sugar, and cream be added to cow's milk to render it more digestible and closer to human milk. A powder formula made from wheat flour, cow's milk, malt flour, and potassium bicarbonate. The formula, which was added to heated cow's milk, soon became popular in Europe. uh, Liebig's soluble infant food was the first commercial baby food in the U.S., selling in groceries for $1 a bottle in 1869. In the 1870s, Nestle's infant food, made with malt, cow's milk, sugar, and wheat flour, became available in the US, selling for 50 cents a bottle. In contrast to Liebig's food, Nestle's formula was diluted with water only, requiring no cow's milk to prepare, and thus was the first complete artificial formula available in the country. See, they went to that great length doing all that research, um, testing on all those children, just to say that they don't even use cow's milk. They don't even use cow's milk. They use malt, sugar, and wheat flour. They didn't even use cow's milk. So, what was the point? And it also begs the question, what's in the formula today? What are we feeding our children today? What is in it? Because it's not cow's milk. It's not cow's milk. It's not the milk that you buy in the dairy section. That's even questionable milk. So what is it? What's in it? Several cow's milk modifier formulas were introduced over the next 20 years. And by 1897, the Sears catalog was selling no fewer than eight brands of commercial infant foods, including Horlick's malted food, 75 cents per bottle, Mellon's infant food, 75 cents per bottle, Ridge's food for infants, 65 cents per bottle. Despite their widespread availability, these proprietary formulas realized only modest sales in the late 19th century because they were expensive in comparison to cow's milk. Most mothers continued to breastfeed their infants. Of course they did. Of course they did. This is something that was being tested. This was something that was being tested. It wasn't accurate. They were still trying to get the formula right. So of course I'm gonna breastfeed my baby. I'm gonna breastfeed my baby anyway. But of course I'm gonna breastfeed my baby. I'm not gonna use my baby as a test subject. I'm not gonna sacrifice my child just for you to get the formula right. It's not gonna happen. Physicians take charge. In the late 19th century, many physicians thought that infant nutrition should be directed not by formula manufacturers, but by physicians themselves. Yep, bring the doctors in. When that baby go in for a checkup, tell the parents that the baby is lacking vitamins, and then write them a prescription for baby formula to supplement, so that they can get the adequate amount of vitamins they need, not realizing that the physicians are paid to tell you this. The physicians are paid to push their products. Many believe that commercial formulas were nutritionally inadequate and therefore inappropriate for young infants. Good. I'm glad. I'm glad. Thomas Morgan Roch of Harvard Medical School developed what came to be known as the percentage method of infant formula feeding, which was popular among medical professionals from 1890 to 1915. He thought that because cow's milk contained more casein than human milk, it must be diluted to lower the percentage of casein. The process of dilution, however, decreases the sugar and fat content to less than that of human milk. To correct these deficiencies, cream and sugar were added in precise amounts. And this is why you should not try to replicate breast milk. This is why you shouldn't try to replicate breast milk because you can't. You can't. Something that is tailored to somebody cannot be replicated. Breast milk change almost every time the baby feeds. That breast milk is changing. Infant formula can't do that. Formula can't help you create a bond with your child. Formula doesn't have the nutrients that breast milk does. It's nutrient deficient. Cow's milk formulas prescribed by the percentage method were compounded by a milk laboratory or more often by a home method that was time and labor intensive. Physicians were taught to monitor growth carefully and to examine the infant's stool and modify the formula based on its appearance because it was making the babies constipated because the babies cannot break down those enzymes because cow's milk is not made. It's called formula, meaning chemical compounds, meaning chemistry is used to create it. It's not made for babies. By the 1920s, physicians were frustrated by the complexity of formula prescribing and modifications associated with Roch's method, percentage method. They eventually began to recommend either commercial formulas or simply homemade formulas with evaporated milk. Why recommend formula at all? If you're doing something that works, why recommend something that doesn't work? You're doing something that works. The whole time you were a physician, you seen moms come in with their breastfed babies, happy, healthy, growing, didn't have to really monitor anything because you already knew that baby was getting everything it needs. So why go from recommending something that works, doing something that works, to something that doesn't work, something that you have to put more work into? You got to monitor these babies. You got to make sure that nothing goes wrong. All for a pretty penny? Why? Makes no sense. It makes no sense. Pasteurization and healthier milk. The healthiest milk is breast milk. That's the healthiest milk you can give a baby. Breast milk. I don't care what anyone says. Breast milk. Healthiest milk you can give a baby. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, physicians came to understand that diseases were caused by germs and could be transmitted by consuming contaminated foodstuffs. In particular, raw milk, which spoiled readily because refrigeration was not widely available until about 1910, was found to transmit a variety of diseases, including tuberculosis, typhoid fever, cholera, cholera, and diphtheria. Diphtheria. dip, dip, Diphtheria. There we go. Diphtheria. Diphtheria. Sorry, my apologies. Okay, let's look this word up. I want to pronounce it correctly. Pronunciation. I want to pronounce it. Diphtheria. Diphtheria. Okay, diphtheria. Okay, cool. Okay, diphtheria. In 1864, Louis Pasteur excuse me, discovered that keeping wine at a high temperature killed the bacteria that caused the wine to sour. The pasteurization process was employed by the dairy industry in 1890, not to make milk healthier, but to prevent milk transported in unrefrigerated railroad cars from souring. Several years later, it was discovered that pasteurization also protected against milk-borne diseases. So now we have pasteurized milk for the babies. And if it's not pasteurized, it could. So, okay, so my question is this. If it's not unpasteurized and it can sour at a high, and it won't sour at a high temperature, if the baby ingests it, will the milk spoil in the baby's stomach? I'm pretty sure it does. I'm pretty sure it does because it already doesn't it it already doesn't meet the adequate makeup of humans' milk for human consumption. So I'm pretty sure it does. I'm pretty sure it's ours. I'm pretty sure. Many physicians vigorously opposed pasteurization, however, because they believed that the process significantly diminished the nutritional value of milk. In fact, pasteurized milk was found to be deficient in what were later identified as vitamins C and D. And children consuming pasteurized milk received daily doses of orange juice and cod liver oil, rich in vitamins A and D, to prevent scurvy and rickets. Pasteurization of milk became a universal practice in the US by about 1915. Now, okay, I want you to imagine this scenario, right? Feeding my baby uh, um, evaporated milk mixed with malt, wheat flour, and whatever else they put in it. Feeding it to them, then turning around and having to feed them orange juice and cod liver oil, right? And if I forget to do that after every feeding, we know how much babies feed. Babies feed when they first born 8 to 12 times and all the way up to whatever. And we know that that drastically changes depending on how the baby is feeling and whatever nutrients the baby needs at that moment. So if I forget to do that, if I forget to feed them the powdered milk with the water, forget to boil the water, forget to feed them orange juice and cod liver oil right after, they get scurvy and rickets. Versus, you hungry? Yeah, and whip out my breast and latch them on. So why choose? Why choose the difficult route? Why choose the method with more dangers? Why choose the process that takes more steps? Why put my baby at risk to choose that process? I don't understand. Make me understand because I don't get it. I don't understand why you would choose to do something like this. Like I don't get it. And people can say all day long that infant formula didn't do anything or it didn't cause any problems or whatever the situation may be. But if you're not paying attention to problems, then you will never see the problems. If you turn a blind eye to what's really happening, you will never see anything. If you don't ever pay attention, you will never know anything. So how can you tell me that you didn't have any problems when you didn't even pay attention? Big breakthrough, evaporated milk. Perhaps the greatest advance in milk science occurred before the Civil War. Gail Broden discovered and patented a process of heating milk to high temperatures in sealed kettles, which removed close to half the water content of the milk. By adding sugar as a preservative, by adding sugar as an alternative, I'm sorry, by adding sugar as a preservative to the resulting product, Gail Borden, Gail Borden invented sweetened condensed milk that had a long shelf life and could be transported easily without fear of spoilage. Now, to me, I have been on this journey to health, eating healthier, eating to live, making sure that my children are the healthiest they could be. Because it, to me, if I'm feeding my children the most healthiest thing that they can eat, which is breast milk, and then I'm turning around when they start to eat solid foods, give them things that are killing them, I'm not doing. I'm doing something wrong. So I want to continue their. I want to continue their health journey. To me, if something doesn't spoil, that's a problem because then you have to think about if it doesn't spoil on the shelf, what is it doing inside of my body if it doesn't spoil? It's not supposed to spoil inside of your body. That creates a toxic environment inside of your body. So if it doesn't spoil on the shelf, then it doesn't spoil inside of your body. Then what does it do? And we're feeding this to our children who have the purest immune system of all of us. We're feeding this to our children and it doesn't spoil. You tell me. You tell me. I'm curious. You tell me. Condensed milk was an invaluable ration for soldiers during the Civil War and was later promoted to mothers as an infant food because of its higher sugar content. However, physicians discouraged its use as an infant formula. Too much sugar. Too much sugar. And what does too much sugar do to you? What does too much sugar do to you? So now we got a bunch of sick babies running around here from consuming nothing but sugar. because that's essentially what condensed milk is. It's nothing but sugar and a little bit of milk, a little bit of milk. So if you have milk and with water and you boil all the, so I think it was just milk. But if you have milk and you boil it down to evaporate the water from it, and then you add sugar, that's nothing but sugar. And you can see with the consistency and how sweet condensed milk is that it's nothing but sugar. It's used as a sugar alternative. It's not used as a milk alternative. Condensed milk is used as a sugar alternative. That's because it's nothing but sugar. A method of producing unsweetened evaporated milk was developed by John B. Meyerberg in 1883. The process involved evaporating approximately 60% of the water from milk in a sealed metal still, then sterilizing the condensed milk by heating it above 200 degrees. This process altered the physical properties of milk, homogenizing it and rendering the curd smaller and more digestible than boiling pasteurized milk. And even with those smaller curds, they still were not digestible. The babies still got constipated. The babies, even though it was small, the babies were still unable, and to this day are unable to pass those curds. Why? Because cow's milk is not made for us. Studies published in the 1920s and 1930s demonstrated that large numbers of baby-fed evaporated milk formula grew as well as breastfed infants did. They were bigger. They had to be. Physicians and parents, reassured by this evidence and encouraged by the low cost and widespread availability of evaporated milk, almost universally endorsed evaporated milk formula to feed infants. Now, how did physicians go from not accepting pasteurized milk to okaying a form of evaporated condensed milk? I don't understand that. How did they go from not accepting pasteurized milk to now um, telling the people, telling the moms to feed their babies evaporated milk formula to satisfy the growth of the babies because it was equal to breastfed babies. That's not true. If you're consuming nothing but sugar, those babies are going to be bigger, then they're going to lack muscle structure, and they're just going to gain weight. That's all they're going to do. And I understand, the whole gaining weight thing with breastfed babies, but bottle fed, formula fed babies are significantly bigger than breastfed babies. Physicians and parents, reassured by this evidence and encouraged by the low cost and widespread availability of evaporated milk, almost universally endorsed evaporated milk formula to feed infants. In the 1930s, physicians were taught to mix evaporated milk formula by combining 2 ounces of cow's milk per pound of body weight per day with an eighth ounce of sugar per pound of weight per day and enough water to provide an infant with 3 ounces of fluid volume per pound per day. What? How much energy has to go into now we have to do math? We have to do equations now? Like we have to do equations now. Now we got to figure out how much to give our baby so that we don't overfeed them and we don't over give them formula. Like, come on. Come on. All of this versus something so simple as attaching the baby to the breast. Like, I don't get it. I don't get it. And some people think like, taking the scoop out of today in today's world, taking the scoop of formula is more convenient than attaching the baby to the breast. But imagine what your baby has to go through. And imagine all of the nutrients your baby's not getting. Imagine back in the day what those babies had to go through in order to be satisfied, be satisfied with formula milk. That imagine how much stress it puts on the mom to try to have to figure it out. Imagine what the physicians went through trying to figure out this formula. When all you have to do is attach the baby to the breast. That's all you gotta do. Don't understand. Crazy. During the Great Depression, corn syrup replaced sugar as a source of carbohydrate because of cost and availability. Gradually, the formula was simplified to the one described at the beginning of this article. By the 1940s and through the 1960s, most infants who were not breastfed received evaporated milk formula, as well as vitamins and iron supplements. It is estimated that in 1960, 80% of bottle fed infants in the US were being fed with an evaporated milk formula. So now not only do I have to make sure that I get this formula correct in order to feed you properly, but now I have to also remember to supplement you with vitamins and iron. Why? What's the purpose? When you get everything you need from breast milk, now you see how hard it is. You see how difficult it is. You see how they are going to nonstop measures in order to counter breast milk when all they have to do is just tell women to breastfeed their babies. If we were not on board with formula, if we were not so fixated on doing things outside of the home and not taking care of our children, we will be able to properly breastfeed our children. Make sure they get the nutrients they need because formula is very depleted. If nutrients, I'm sorry, if formula was made and had all the nutritional value that it states that it does, that physicians tell you that it does, you would not have to supplement with vitamins and iron. That means that that milk contains nothing. It has nothing in it. It's just sugar. It's sugar and fillers. That's all it is. That's why the babies blow up. That's why the baby's so big now. And then to add insult to injury, we feed them processed food, heavily processed food. That's why the baby's so big now. That's why the children are obese. My son is 2. My son is 2. He still nurses. He is solid. I'm talking about strong. Every time he go get his checkup, he is ranging in the 95 plus percentile. He is strong. People call my son fat. He's not fat. He's solid, meaning that he has muscle, generated muscle, strong like a bull. These kids today are fat. I'm talking about stomachs poking, can barely breathe, everything. All because you want to feed your kids some powdered sugar with powdered milk because you thought that was easier. Okay. Seeking a quote humanized formula. In the early 20th century, the focus of nutrition scientists shifted from modifying the protein content of infant formula to making its carbohydrate and fat content more closely resemble that of human milk. You cannot recreate human milk. You can't. Then the reason why you can't recreate it is because it's tailored to the mom and it's tailored to the baby. There's not a one-stop shop for human milk. That's why powdered milk is so dangerous because it's a one-stop shop. It's not a one-stop shop for human milk. Some researchers believed that the carbohydrate content of cow's milk should be supplemented with maltose and dextrins. At their request, E. Med Johnson, the founder of the Mead Johnson Company, produced a cow's milk additive called dextromaltose. It's additives. It's not nutritious for your babies. These are additives, sugars, and fillers. That's all it is. And we constantly feed this to our children. Let me tell you a story. My niece, when my niece was a baby, she was formula fed. She got so big. She was about 5 or 6 months. She got so huge. She was huge. And then we found out that her mom was feeding her formula made for 9 to 12 month babies. She was huge. I think she was like 5 months and about 15 pounds, 15, 20 pounds. She was huge. And it wasn't until we found out that she was drinking milk that was made for 9 to 12 months that she started to lose the weight. But she was huge. So imagine what that does to the baby's body, feeding them milk that's not tailored for them, feeding them milk full of dextromaltose and sugar, what that does to the body. And then you wonder why it's so easy for these children to get diabetes because it's non-stop sugar consumption, non-stop from the time that they born, non-stop sugar. Dextromaltose was introduced at the 1912 meeting of the American Medical Association and was sold only by physicians to mothers. It wasn't even available worldwide. And these physicians got a cut off the top to sell this BS to these mothers. And the mothers fell for it. Yeah, because the physician said, well, the doctor said, just taking advantage of these women, taking advantage of these families because you have on a white coat. You can't believe everything everybody tell you. I don't care if they feel like they have a degree or went to school or whatever. You have to question everything. And if they pushing this on you after they've seen countless, numerous success stories of mothers breastfeeding their babies. Why are they pushing this sugar on you and your kids? What is in it for them? A few years later, in 1919, a new infant formula was introduced that replaced milk fat with a fat blend derived from animal and vegetable fats. So what is it? Refined to an oil? This formula, which more closely resembled human milk than cow's milk, was called SMA for simulated milk adaptation. Adapted. Simulated milk adapted. Simulated. SMA was also the first formula to include cod liver oil. Soon after SMA was introduced, Nestle's infant food added cod liver oil to its formula, as did most other infant formulas. Okay, so now I could just feed my baby orange juice, vitamins, and iron supplements. I can stop the cod liver. I can stop that. Okay. In the 1920s, other humanized infant formulas were produced and marketed to the American public. Nestle produced a formula with a vegetable oil derived fat blend called lactogen, lactogen that was positioned to compete with SMA. Just goodness, this is just bad. This is just terrible because now it's not even about the children anymore. It's about who can make the most money. It's not even about trying to find a adequate nutritional supplement to replace human milk. It's about money now. Who can create it the fastest to get it out to the market? That's it. Another humanized infant formula was developed by Alfred W. Bosworth, a milk chemist working for the biochemistry department of Harvard Medical School, and by Henry Bowditch, a Boston pediatrician who was employed at the Boston Floating Hospital. They experimented with an infant formula derived from cow's milk by adding various amounts of vegetable oils, calcium, and phosphorus salts, and preparing blends with different lactose concentrates. Bosworth and Bowditch tested more than 200 formulas in clinical trials before they considered their infant formula complete. In 1924, Bosworth agreed to have his formula marketed by the Morris and Ross Milk Company of Columbus, Ohio. The new formula was produced at the Franklin Brewery plant in Columbus and was originally sold by physicians in plain cans upon which they could place their own label. See, the doctors get paid too. The doctors get paid to push formula. In 1926, the formula was renamed Similac because it was similar to lactation, a name proposed by Morris Fishbein, editor of the Journal of the American Medical Association. Now, okay, let's go back and see what's in Similac. Similac. What's in Similac? Vegetable oil, cow's milk by adding various amounts of vegetable oil, calcium, and phosphorus salts, and preparing blends with different lactose concentrations. Does that sound like something that is beneficial to the babies? Does that vegetable oil, calcium, we'll throw calcium in. Vegetable oil, calcium, and lactose concentrate. That sound real healthy, don't it? That sound real healthy. That sound like the baby's gonna get everything they need from lactose concentrate. In the late 1920s, the Mead Johnson Company introduced Sobe, the first soy-based formula. And we know that soy has been proven to not be healthy because it's high in estrogen. Several years later, the company marketed Pablum, the first pre-cooked fortified infant cereal. Pablum was a mixture of wheat, oats, corn, bone meal, wheat germ, alfalfa, and dried brewer's yeast fortified with minerals and vitamins. So here's the cereal, here's the thickener. Here's the thickener to add to vegetable oil, calcium, phosphorus salts, and different blends of lactose concentrate. Here's the cereal with wheat, oats, corn, bone meal, wheat germ, alfalfa, and dried brewer's yeast fortified with minerals and vitamins. Here's the cereal you put into this additive. You see all of this. No wonder it's called formula because that's exactly what it is. And let's not even break down all of what's in the oats and the corn and the bone and the wheat germ and the alpha. Let's not get into all of that. There's nothing nutritious. There's nothing nutritious about baby formula. There's nothing that can replace human breast milk. Absolutely nothing. No matter how hard they try. There's nothing that can replace it. The rise of proprietary formulas. So think about all of that. Think about everything that I just named when you go to scoop and mix that baby formula. The rise of proprietary formulas. Despite the introduction of proprietary infant formulas in the 1920s, most parents continued to use evaporated milk formula because it was easy to prepare and affordable. It was not until the 1950s that commercial formulas began to slowly gain acceptance. In the decades that followed, a variety of new formulas came to the market. Um, Nutramigen, Nutramigen, introduced in 1942, was the first protein hydrolysate, I think I'm saying that right, infant formula. Ross Laboratories Similac concentrate became available in 1951, and Mead Johnson's Enfamil for infant milk was produced in 1959. In that year, Ross first marketed Similac with iron. Iron fortified formula was poorly accepted initially because of the widespread belief that iron fortification caused gastrointestinal disturbances such as diarrhea and constipation. Still does. Still does. It still does. These babies still get constipated at a high rate, still get diarrhea at a very high rate. So it still does. Now you have SIDS involved in this too. So now that's what you have to look out for as well. During the 1960s, commercial formulas grew in popularity, and by the mid 1970s, they had all but replaced evaporated milk as the standard for infant nutrition. During this time, the percentage of women who breastfed their newborn reached an all time low of 25%. Now, remind me of what happened in the late 1960s to the mid 1970s. Feminism. Working outside the home, not wanting to feed the kids no more, not wanting to be around the kids no more. And that's the reason why we have a problem. We don't know our children to this day. We don't know what they like, who they are, what type of people they desire to become. You take away all of that when you choose not to breastfeed your children. Why? And you have to question, why do they want to take that away from you? Why do they want you to work and not pay attention to your children? Why do they want your children to become a detriment to society? Why do they want that? Everything is a war on breast milk. It's a war on women. You have to question these things. An all-time low of 25%. All-time low. That means I think that's one in four, 1 in 5. 1 in 5 women, 1 in 5 women, one was still choosing to breastfeed. In part because of the ease of use and low cost of commercial formula and the belief that formula were medically approved to provide optimal nutrition for young infants. Yeah, because the doctors were pushing it. Doctors get paid to push the infant formula. Now today, it's rare. It's rare that I meet somebody who breastfeeds their babies. It's rare. Every time, oh, you still breastfeed? Oh, you better than me. Because you got to think about it. Even though it's easy to use and has low cost, what are you losing? What are you losing? Most of the food today that's low cost and easy to use are heavily depleted. No nutritional value whatsoever. High in sugar content. So easy to use and low cost. What are you losing? You're losing everything. All because you want it easy. Nothing worth having is easy. A major factor in the acceptance of commercial formulas was their use in hospitals to feed newborn infants during the 1960s and 70s. To encourage acceptance, formula companies began to provide inexpensive or free formulas to hospitals and ready to feed bottles, enabling the phasing out of hospital formula preparation rooms. Mothers who witnessed how well their newborns accepted these easily prepared formulas were often convinced to continue this practice at home. Moreover, although pediatricians did not dissuade mothers from nursing, it was not strongly encouraged. It's still not strongly encouraged today. We don't have we don't have things readily available for moms who breastfeed. If you choose to stay home and breastfeed your children, something is wrong with you. What? You don't want to get out here and work? You don't want to follow, you gonna give up your career to make sure your baby, when you got formula, you just scoop it and mix it with water and that's it. So sacrificing for your children is frowned upon. And hospitals, in some hospitals, when you have a baby, they automatically bring you formula, especially depending on the neighborhood you live in, what you look like. They automatically try to give you formula. They send you home with formula. Here, take this formula. You can have these bottles. You can do this. You can do that. It's not encouraged for you to try to figure out how to breastfeed. And if you do, you paying a pretty penny for it. It's not. It's not pushed on you to breastfeed your babies. They don't come to you and tell you what to do. They don't automatically expect that you're gonna breastfeed, but they automatically expect you to give your baby formula. The modern era, fine tuning formulas. The American Academy of Pediatrics Committee on Nutrition first made recommendations for vitamins and mineral levels for infant formulas in 1967. These recommendations have been revised periodically. In 1969, the committee endorsed iron fortification for infant formula. In the years that followed, the incidence of iron deficiency anemia dropped strikingly. In 1978 and 1979, 141 cases of hypochloremic metabolic alkalosis in infants resulted from consumption of two soy formulas, Neomol soy and Chofree, were reported to the Centers of Disease Control because soy is not good for the body, especially an undeveloped body, like a baby body. This prompted the passage of the Infant Formula Act in 1980, which set maximum and minimum standards for many nutrients in formula and mandated testing and manufacturing standards as well. Perhaps the greatest achievement of nutrition research over the past several decades has been the introduction of specialty formulas and human milk modifiers used to feed premature and very low weight infants. Now, speaking of premature and very low weight infants, they need breast milk the most. They don't need formula. They don't need powdered milk. They need breast milk in order to enhance their bodies to grow, give them the nutrients they need that they lacked before they had everything they need by being birthed. They have everything they need with breast milk. I know someone who had a premature baby and they fed the baby powdered milk. The baby is just now starting to walk. 2 years. 2 years. The baby is just now starting to walk. She's just now starting to talk because she lacked the nutrients she needed to grow properly. She needed breast milk. Premature babies need breast milk. They need breast milk more than anybody. And the first thing you do to feed a premature baby is help is get is get is give them formula. That's the first thing you want to do. I'm sorry for that. My mic went out, so I apologize. Is give them formula. They need formula more than anybody. I'm sorry. They need breast milk more than anybody. For terms and near-term infants, formula manufacturers have continued to improve their standard formulas to more closely resemble breast milk. You can't. It's not possible. In 1997, Ross's Similac was reformulated to change the whey casein ratio. Then it was 18% to 82% to 52%, 48%, which more closely resembled that of breast milk, 70% to 30%. Now, if you notice back in the article, they said that casein was terrible for infants, and the casein in cow's milk was so high that they have to get the curdle smaller so that the babies can consume the casein in smaller doses. The ratio of Mead Johnson's Enfamil is 60% to 40%. Both Mead Johnson and Ross's formula contain added nucleotides in amounts similar to those in breast milk. And this year, both companies have introduced formulas that contain long-chain polyunsaturated fatty acids. Over the past few years, these two companies have also begun marketing niche formulas, including lactose-free, a soy formula with dietary fiber, and Haston recovery for gastroenteritis. Okay, and the formula with rice starch for babies with reflux. They wouldn't have to deal with that if you just pushed. But they everything is a money. Everything is a money grab. Everything is about money. Everything is about greed. If you can make money off of it, you can't make money off of. You cannot make money. You can't make as much money off a woman who chooses to breastfeed than you can off a female who chooses to formula feed. So again, it's not about trying to supplement. It's not about trying to find an easier way to alleviate the stresses of breastfeeding. It's not about that. It's about the money. It's about how can we make money? How can we push these chemicals, this this poison? How can we push this poison to these parents so that we can make money off of them? We don't care about these kids. We don't care about them. And if their parents care, the parents would see through what we're telling them and do the method that is known to work. So they don't care. All they care about is the money. That's it. Today's young infants are the beneficiaries of a long and complicated history of infant formula. While we continue to encourage mothers to breastfeed their infants, babies who are fed formula from birth and are weaned to formula from breast milk receive the best nutrition medical science has to offer. Now, that is widely debatable. Um, this is the formula that has been successful in not taking the lives of infants, even though it does. It plays a vital part in SIDS. It really, really does. Because it's been researched and proven that children who are breastfed, um, children who are breastfed have a lower rate of succumbing to SIDS than babies who are formula fed because because formula plays a part in that. So I want you to think about that, right? I'm going to stop sharing. I want you to think about that, right? I want you to think about how they've come this far. I want you to think about how they've gotten to this point. I want you to think about where they are right now and what they choose to do in the future. How will formula milk be affected in the future? Because if you saw my previous video, they're now working on lab made breast milk called biomilk, which I think is going to be essentially a liquid form of powdered milk. So you won't, it will eliminate the use of you having to scoop it out the can and use the water and prepare the bottle and heat it. It's going to be liquid. So that way, all you do is transfer it to a baby bottle. So think about that. All the chemicals I just told you about, all of the additives, dextrose, whatever you call it, lactose concentration. Think about all of that. Wheat flour, corn flour. Think about all of that you're giving your baby. Think about that. Think about the sacrifice you're not willing to no longer make because breastfeeding is a sacrifice. Think about the need for wet nurses in order to make sure that your child is properly nourished. Think about that. And think about all the stuff they have in formula and tell me that it's not a war on breast milk. Think about that. So I just wanted to bring you the article today. Thank you for being here with me. I know I didn't notice that I was on here for an hour, but this is really important to me. I am the only woman in my family who has breastfed their child. And so I wanted to bring to you information that I feel is very important to know and understand as to why it's so important to breastfeed your babies. So thank you for being here with me today. Thank you for reading this article with me. And let me know what you think. Let me know what you think about the history of formula, how it came to be where it is today. All the infants that were used as test subjects to get to this point, all the infants that are used as test subjects now. Let me know what you think. So, like, comment, and subscribe. Um, Put us in the YouTube algorithm so that this information can be spread to more people. Um, and yeah, so that's the end. And I just want to thank you guys for being here. I really appreciate you. And if you have any information or anything that you want me to give my perspective on, please let me know. Give me any feedback that you feel is necessary, um, so that I can better serve you. So thank you, Luscious family, for joining me, and I will see you on the next video.